Okay. All right. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. So let me just quickly recap. Just that we just started the recording. So yesterday we learned about how to build a Lambda function, just a simple plain vanilla hello world Lambda function using Python 3.7 as the runtime, right? And also have a bunch of settings around how the Lambda function should execute, what is the memory that needs to be allocated to the Lambda function, and proportionate to the memory, there is going to be uh, CPU that will be allocated automatically by Lambda for your execution, and you will be charged only for the duration of your Lambda function execution, right? And so these are some of the things that we saw yesterday. So now you would consider Lambda functions as like when you build programs and when you build applications, in an object-oriented programming language, you will have multiple classes, and each class will have, several methods and several functions and things like that, right? So look at it as, in the new style of microservices, right? Each Lambda function could be a microservice of its own, right? So where the service that the Lambda function delivers is going to, you know um, uh, a specific small function of the entire application. So that way you stitch multiple Lambda functions together, and you orchestrate multiple Lambda functions together using uh, a service called the step functions, right? And use that to orchestrate the execution of multiple Lambda functions in a very coordinated fashion. Okay, so that's basically how you simulate, how traditionally you build applications using a programming language like Java or .NET, and where you have build a complete library around it, right? And then you use that library to deploy it on an app server, web server, and execute it, correct? So now using Lambda is an event driven programming, right? So where it responds to events, right? So now that way, there are multiple ways in which you can trigger a Lambda function. Either you can subscribe to an event, and when the event occurs, the Lambda function associated with it gets triggered, or you can also invoke a Lambda function. Another Lambda function can trigger one more Lambda function, right? And within the within your entire environment, multiple Lambda functions can call each other, or you can front end the Lambda with a API gateway. Okay, API gateway is a uh, as the name says, it basically provides a gateway to expose your APIs to other applications or other interfaces or to the external world. Okay, so now API gateway, you can use an API gateway to interface your Lambda functions, and you can use that to basically invoke your Lambda functions. Okay, sorry, I think somebody has to go on mute. Z071, can you go on mute, please? Yeah, okay, I've muted you. Okay, so API gateway is, let me just go to API gateway. So API gateway is a fully managed service that enables developers to create, publish, maintain, monitor, and secure APIs at any scale, right? I mean, imagine when you want to expose an API to, like, let's take UPI, right? UPI, all of us know what UPI is, correct? It's the Unified Payment Interface, where a lot of uh, payment apps or mobile wallets make use of, or payment gateways make use of UPI, right? But at the end of the day, UPI is a set of APIs which is exposed to these applications, right? And then finally, these applications like Google Pay or Paytm or um, Phone Pay, right? These applications integrate with UPI to pass on your details to UPI, get a response back from UPI uh, on the successful payment or failed payments, right? So so those are APIs, right? So now you need a secure way to expose your APIs, right? Now your backend code is your Lambda function, which hosts your actual business logic and what happens within, I mean, when you invoke that Lambda function, right? But you also need a way to secure that and securely expose it to the outside world, right? And have the ability to throttle, right? So now, what do you mean by throttling, right? I mean, you can say that, there can be only 5,000 API requests that can be made in a second or in a minute, right? So that kind of throttling is something that you can set using API gateway. Okay, suddenly you see that your uh, the number of requests to your Lambda is increased, right? And it is about to kind of, and you have some sort of a single point of failure or some weak components in your application architecture, right? So now you want to basically circumvent that, right? So now how do you circumvent it? It is through having an API gateway which can throttle the number of requests that can go to your Lambda function and ensure that your Lambda functions don't break, correct? Okay, so APIs act as a front door for applications to access data, business logic, or functionality from your backend services. Your backend services is nothing but your Lambda functions, right? Or your backend services can also be your own application functions, such as you have built your own APIs using Spring Boot, or you have built APIs using Python or Node.js or .NET, which are running in, say, EC2 instances, or which are running in containers. They're also backend services. Using API gateway, you can create RESTful. Okay, RESTful, right? RESTful is, which uses the REST style of exposing APIs, right? I told about REST. I mean, learn about REST because it's very, very important. It's basic. If you have to clear interviews, you need to know what a REST is, what a REST API is. And WebSocket APIs that enable real-time two-way communication applications. Okay, and it also supports containerized and serverless workloads as well as web applications. Okay, so now API Gateway handles all the tasks involved in accepting and processing up to hundreds of thousands of concurrent API calls. Like, it doesn't matter. There can be 100 concurrent calls, or there can be thousand concurrent calls, including traffic management, CORS support. Okay, cross origin resource support, uh, authorization and access control. You can block certain calls coming from certain regions using API gateway. You can throttle them, right? You can simply throttle them, say that allow only X number of requests to pass through, right? Don't allow more, right? So that way you can throttle it. It's like filtering the traffic, correct? Where, if you have a bottleneck in the road, probably there will be dividers or there will be barricades and put in the road to throttle the number of vehicles that can pass through at any given point in time, correct? So that's called throttling. So similarly in API gateway also, you can throttle it in such a way that pass only X number of uh, requests to pass through, at any given point in time. Okay, and you can have multiple versions, right? And there's no minimum fees or startup costs. You pay for the API calls you receive, amount of data transferred out, and with the API tiered pricing model. Okay, there are two types of APIs: RESTful and WebSocket. Ignore WebSocket for now. Most important thing is RESTful APIs. You should learn about RESTful APIs. Okay, RESTful APIs are HTTP. Okay, which uses the HTTP methods of get, put, post, options. Okay, if you see this diagram, so you have an API gateway which is connected, which is being used by users, applications in mobile applications or web applications, IoT devices. Like, for example, you take mobile devices, mobile app, your mobile app might also make calls to API gateway, correct? At the end of the day, right? So that way, it just goes here, and then it can be your private applications also, which is running in on-premises or on VPC, right? And then your API gateway has got these backends. Backend can be an AWS Lambda. It can be EC2 instances, services that are running on EC2 instances, or it can be DynamoDB. It can directly be DynamoDB, or it can be Kinesis. Okay, Kinesis is for real-time streaming of data. Okay, or other AWS services, or containers and things like that. Or it can also point to applications that are running in your on-premises. But API gateway is one gateway that can securely manage all the APIs that you have, right? And it can provide a RESTful interface to your consumers so that your consumers can consume those, and they'll be able to integrate with your applications using the API gateway. Okay, and these are all the benefits we spoke about it: efficient API development, performance at scale, cost savings at scale, RESTful options. It has flexible security controls. And you can it integrates with IAM, AWS IAM. It's easy to monitor. CloudWatch, it's integrated with CloudWatch. Yeah, these are all the features. Okay, you can read through these features. Pricing, let's look at the pricing. Yeah, so there's a free tier available, so you can conveniently use it. 1 million REST calls are free, right, as part of the free tier. So beyond that, the first 300 million calls, API calls, will be charged $1.05. After the 300 plus million, it will be charged $0.95 per million. Okay, first 300 million per million request is charged $1.05. After that, 300 million, 300 plus million, it's like 0.95. Yeah, it's all in millions, right? As we saw yesterday. So that's the scale at which we are talking. And there are different types of pricing. So we can get started. There's a developer guide. There's also a serverless image resizing tutorial. We're going to look at this. Just uh, don't worry too much right now. Okay. Yeah, resources as usual. You can just point to the the developer guide. Getting started guide, developer guide. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's run one of these tutorials, serverless web app tutorial. Okay, so this is going to take about a couple of hours. Yeah. See what this is going to do is it's going to use all these like AWS Amplify. You don't have to use AWS Amplify right now, but yeah, if you want, you can use it. But you can use this, and you can use it uses Cognito, and then it uses API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. Okay. Um, yeah, so it uses mostly free tier. And each AWS service used is eligible. If you are outside the usage limits of the free tier, completing this tutorial will cost you less than 25 cents. Okay, you need an AWS account, a text editor, latest version of Chrome. Okay, we'll come back to this. I'll come back to this later. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to my console and show you the API gateway. We're going to simply create one sample API gateway and then use it with our Lambda function that we created, right? So, okay, if you go to API gateway, you get this page. So now here, if you don't have any APIs, it will just show this page. So you can go here and you can select the type of API that you want to create. Okay, it can be an HTTP API, which provides a low latency and Cost-effective REST APIs with built-in features such as OIDC, OAuth, and native core support. Okay, it works with Lambda, API, HTTP backends, and things like that. This is for WebSocket APIs. So usually, WebSocket is used for real-time applications like chat. If you're building a chat application, you can use WebSocket API. Okay, where it provides uses a WebSocket programming to style to build those APIs. Then you can most common is REST APIs, right? You can develop a REST API where you can expose your API to the world. And of course, you can control access, or you just want to within your you want a REST API to be only internal facing, right? You don't want your REST API to be internet facing. Then you can use the REST API private version of the REST API, which will be only within your VPC. You'll be able to invoke your REST API only within your VPC. Whereas if you want REST API to be outside of your VPC, or it will have a public endpoint, then you can use this. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's go with this REST API, then say build. Yeah, welcome to Amazon API. To create your first API, we have pre-populated the import with a pet store API defined using Swagger 2.0. What is Swagger? Have you come across Swagger? Have any of you come across Swagger? Okay, it's important you understand these if you're especially going in a development track. I'm going to paste it. Swagger is a nice tool to build APIs. It's an open source tool. Simplify API development for users, teams, and enterprises. It's Swagger open source. Yeah, so you get a bunch of tools to build APIs and design the APIs and build the APIs. Okay, that's Swagger. So you can just take a look at it later on. Yeah, just say okay. So in this case, this is I can go for a new API or I can go for an example API. Okay, or you can import from a Swagger Open API 3 standards, right? So for now, I'll just go with an example API. So what this does is it's a pet store application where it simply integrates. It simply is a standalone API which exposes a pet store. Um, where you can actually query the API to get JSON output out of it. Okay, so this has got some methods in it. It has got a get method slash pets slash pets slash pet ID, right? In fact, there are a lot of public APIs that are available, right? For example, weather. Let me search and show you how a weather API works. Okay, this is not free actually. Sign up fun user for more APIs. Just go to subscribe. Yeah, free. I'll just go for a free. Yeah, get API key. Okay, I need a username, correct? Okay, I'm just going to. Okay, I'm just going to say something. Yeah, I'll just do this. Okay, I've sent. Please check your email. Let me just go. Yes, it's come up. Verify. Okay, it's verified. I'll just go back. Let me refresh. It's verified. Okay, API. Yeah, I'll just go subscribe to free get API key. Alright, you're already signed in. Okay, API keys. Just go get the API key. Yeah, I got this API key, right? This is my API key. I'll just say my key. Yeah, so this is the default API key. Okay, so now how do I invoke those APIs? How to start? Okay, if you want to get the current weather, right, by say zip code. Okay, yeah, so this is how you invoke that API, right? API dot. So for this, what you need to do is you need to use something like Postman. Postman is a tool that you use, okay, with which you can. Okay, I'm just going to sign in here. I'll stop my screen share. Sign in. Let me sign in with my Google. So because Postman is quite important. How many of you used Postman? Raise your hands. Postman. Nobody used Postman?
Sir, I'm using an Postman while getting the
Hmm.
get method or those things. We can use it for that testing purpose. We can use that Postman
Correct.
tool.
Correct. Yeah. Excellent. That's how you use Postman. One second, I'm just pulling up my Postman. It got signed out. I'm just signing in. Okay, so I'm here with my Postman. Let me share my screen back. Okay, so I'm here in the Postman. So I can just put a get. So any API that you want to use, you'll get a URL like this. Just copy this URL. Okay, and then it will have parameters that you can pass. Okay, so if you see, it also gives an example. Okay, just go. It's a get request. Okay, it's a get request, and you have to pass your API key here, right? I mean, that's the thing out here. Yeah, so there's my API key. Oh, yeah, good. Just go to APIs. Mm, my API keys. Yeah, so this is my key. I'll just copy this key, come back to Postman, paste it here, and then say send invalid API key. Okay, no worries. I'll copy this. I'll just delete this. I'll use this as the key. Okay, it's not allowing me to make the call because the API key is invalid. It's what it is saying. But yeah, pretty much now I don't want to digress too much. But if you want to invoke any APIs, you need an URL like this. Okay, you need an URL like this, and you'll actually pass some parameters to it as a query string or in the body. Okay, you'll either do it or a query string or in the body, and you have to select the method, what method you want, get or post or put option. So these are all some common methods that are there. So you just have to use one of these methods to invoke that API. Okay, APIs, is it not enabled? Okay, it's a free plan, hourly forecast unavailable. 3-hour forecast, I get it for 5 days. Okay, probably I'm doing the wrong one. Yeah, I think 3-hour forecast is there. I think this is possible, I believe. Yeah, probably I'm not authorized to do that. Yeah, I'll use this. 2.5 forecast, city name. Yeah, I'll use this. Copy, come back here. Paste this. My API key, I'll just take my API key. Copy this, paste it here. City name. Okay, I'll have to give a city name. Where do I find the city name? City name, I can find it here. Yeah, it can be London. Oh, let me select London then. Or Hyderabad. Okay, I don't know. Probably I'm missing something. So that's why it's not allowing me to go through. But pretty much I'll show you with our API gateway. But this is how you invoke APIs. Okay, this is how you invoke APIs and you get the response back. Okay, so let's just ditch this, go back our original thing. So yeah, we have an example API here. So let's just create it and let's make it regional and say import. Yeah, so it's imported my sample example API here into my API gateway. Okay, so if you see here, this is my API. Okay, and if I just go here, this is a get method that I have. Under get method that I have, uh, slash pets. Okay, and then there's a post method here where I pass a pet ID and post it so that I get the options back. I get the response back. Okay, so now let's review this. So if you see, this is a get method. Okay, so Your client is invoking your method. Okay, and then this is the ARN of this get method. Then it goes to an integration. So in this case, it's just a mock integration. There's nothing. You can, if you see, it's a mock. There's nothing there. Okay, and this returns a content type is JSON, but that can integrate with a Lambda function or an HTTP or any other AWS service. Okay, you can select the region, and you can select the execution role, and you can define what AWS service that you want, and it can also be VPC link. You can just ignore that for now. Okay, but remember, the integration type can be a Lambda function, right? You can use a Lambda function as a backing service for your API gateway, where API gateway will invoke the Lambda function and then get the response back from Lambda functions and return it back to the end user. Okay, or it can be any other endpoint. I mean, this endpoint should be accessible. Here, it's just simply does a pass through of the content from API gateway to your other third-party endpoint. Okay, let me just return it back to. Okay, yeah, so it has got get method. This is the get method, and it goes through a. So then you have a post method. It goes through this. Okay, so now what you need to do is you just need to go to stages and create a stage, right? You can, this is where you can say this is for development purpose, right? I'm just say development. You can just say development stage. So stage is nothing but, when you start building APIs, you'll have to go through the development life cycle, right? You start with the development, and then you move it to testing. From testing, you go to UAT, user acceptance testing, and finally you take it to production. Production is a live system, right? Yeah, so just say create. Okay, you have to just go deploy API and then click on new stage. Stage name is dev development. Deploy to dev is the name that I'm giving, and just say deploy. Yeah, so it will create a stage called dev, right? And it will also give you an endpoint like this. It's a unique endpoint that you see. You see some random characters dot execute -api dot ap south1 dot amazon aws.com/dev, right? So now if you just copy this API, copy this endpoint, open a browser, paste it. Yeah, so you'll see the Swagger's help page, right? So this is basically a Swagger's help page. You'll get a help page, and then it will also tell you how to make the request, right? If you read this, you have successfully deployed your first API. You're seeing this HTML page because the get method to the root resource of API returns this content as a mock integration. The pet store API contains the /pets and /pets/pet ID resources. By making a get request to /pets, you can retrieve a list of pets in your API. If you're looking for a specific pet, for example, the pet with ID 1, you can make a get request to /pets/1. You can use a REST client such as Postman to test the post methods in your API to create a new pet. Okay, use the sample body to send the post request. Okay, so now what we are going to do is let's just copy this endpoint, go to new browser, and then say /pets. Yeah, see, it's actually returning me all the pets with ID is 1, type is dog, price is 249.99. ID is 2, type is cat, price is 124.99. ID is 3, type is fish, price is 0.99, right? So this is basically a JSON data that it is giving, right? Raw JSON. You can also do it from your Postman. Let me go to the Postman. I'll just paste it and then hit on send. It's a get request. So you get the same output here. Okay. And then this is JSON output. You can use this to if you're consuming this API, you can use this JSON output within your programming language, any programming language, and you can show this to the end user as a grid, as a table, or as a plain text, or along with images. I mean, you can do it however way that you want to use this data. You can make use of this data in whatever way you want to present it. I mean, if it is a mobile application, you may want to basically invoke this API whenever the user logs into the mobile application and say list all the pets, right? You can show this along with a picture of the pet and things like that, and then you can have a buy option, right? Click on buy, like the mobile applications that you see, right? For example, you have amazon.in, right? Where in amazon.in, when you log in, you get a home page, right? In that home page, you see so many products being displayed. Then you have an ability to search. Once you search for some particular item, then you get the details of it. Once you click on that, you get a list, and then once you click on the list, you see the price. You see what is the savings that you get, right? And what is the delivery timelines for that, what is the description about it, and finally you also get add to cart, right? Click on add to cart. So each one is an API at the end of the day. Okay. Remember, whenever you perform any action behind the scenes, there is something like this, an API which is running and which is fetching the data from the backend database, and it is returning it back to the user. Okay. So yeah, so that's how you do it. And let's also look at the post option. So now you can take this. I want to say add a new method. Okay, I want to create a new value, right? Right now, if you see, there are only three. 1, 2, 3. I'll add a new one with a post. Okay, here I have to make it post. To make it post, and yeah, I'm just going to remove this, make it /dev. Okay, in the body, I have to paste it. Paste this JSON in the body. Oops. Yeah, I'll just paste it in the body as a JSON. Type is JSON. Headers, you don't have to change, just leave the headers as it is. It's a post, you're posting it to this. Instead of cat, let me say parrot. Yeah, see, it's success. It posted it. Yeah, see, it's success. Parrot is given. So now what you can do is you can just go and get /pets. I'll just remove this. It's okay. I'll just go refresh this. Okay, so yeah, I mean, see, it's just a mock, right? I mean, but it made an API call, but there's no database right now, so which can persist that. If you see it's successful, basically, right? That's the whole idea. So now when you actually build an application, because this is just a mock, this is not a real application, correct? But when you build a real application, you can see that when you post something, it goes through the API, it goes to the backend functionality, and then it basically uh, 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 writes the data to the backend database, parses the data to the backend database. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically how it works. So now let's do one thing. Let's actually build a small API. I mean, we can use the Lambda function, make our API gateway front end our Lambda function. Let me just close this. Okay, let me go back to APIs. You will see all your APIs here. This is your first API gateway, and this is the ID. You can just click on pet store and then you get this. If you go to stages, click on dev, you get this dev link. Now, if you want to create a new stage, right, and just go deploy API, you can say new stage. Stage name is prod. Production, just say deploy. Yeah, see, you get this production now. You see production here. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's go back. Yeah, create a REST API with Lambda integrations and API gateway. Okay. Yeah. So you can use this walkthrough to create and deploy a REST API with a Lambda proxy integration. In a Lambda integration, the HTTP method from the client is mapped to the backend Lambda function invocation. Okay, first is create a Lambda function. We already have one Lambda function. Then you have create a REST API in the API gateway console. We're just going to review this. So where you go create an API, create a regional endpoint for it. Okay, let's do one thing. I mean, let's not do this, okay, because we are actually going to do exactly the same thing tomorrow. Okay, let's not do this. So for today, what I want you to do is I want you to do this test API gateway with a mock function, right? And then download Postman. Okay, I'm just going to close this and download the Postman and then use Postman to uh, test the API. Okay, just going to give you some steps. Yeah, delete it. Okay, API gateway is something that I'm going to give you. Okay, developer guide, getting started, developer guide. Yeah, this is the developer guide. Okay, assignment is create a sample API gateway with mock patch store data. Okay, first thing is go to API gateway. navigate to API gateway in AWS console. Okay, choose REST API and click on build. Yeah, just say okay and then select example API. Okay, so you have to select example API. Okay. Okay, select example API. Yeah, and then fourth step is, yeah, you can review this example API and then select endpoint as regional. So only then it will be a public endpoint, otherwise it will just be a private endpoint. And then say import. Click on import. Yeah, so once it's imported, okay, what you can do is you can just go click on actions, deploy API. Okay, give a deployment stage, new stage. Click on deployment stage, new stage in deployment stage. Give name as stage name as dev. Give a description and then say deploy. And click on deploy. Okay, once it's deployed, click on stages, the left side, the left menu. Okay, and then select dev stage. Okay, and you will have an invoke URL like this. Select dev stage and you will find the invoke URL. This is the invoke URL. Okay, copy that invoke URL. Copy the invoke URL and perform the actions in a browser or Postman. Okay, you can download Postman from here. In fact, this also gives you that, right? If you go here, you can just download Postman from here. Getpostman.com. Okay, so you can just say slash pets. Pets. Yeah, you will see pets. Select raw data here. Then you can say /1 it will only return you the first pet with pet ID 1/2. It will return you 2/3. It will return you 3. You're passing parameters here, right? So this is how you're invoking the API. This is the path to invoke the API, correct? Yeah, so you can just try out these things. Try invoking the following get methods, either from browser or Postman. Okay, this returns all the pets. Returns a specific pet detail. Okay, so yeah, so it's pretty simple, correct? I mean, so let's do this today. Let's do this assignment today. So tomorrow we can put this in action when we do the project. Okay, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to put this in the chat. So please go to your breakout rooms and you can actually start, first go through the API gateway specifications, right? Go through the product specifications first before you can dirty your hands. Okay, first go through and then do the assignment for today. It should be pretty simple. Okay, all right. So then let's do one thing. Let's get to our breakout rooms. Is everybody okay with this? I mean, it's a very simple thing. API gateway is quite simple. I mean, what you're doing now is it's basically 101 of API gateway. The very first hello world API gateway sample, right? And you're just learning how API gateway works. And tomorrow we'll learn how API gateway works in conjunction with Lambda functions and DynamoDB. And then we'll do a full-fledged project. We'll build one small serverless web application which uses Lambda API Gateway DynamoDB S3. Okay, but it's important you understand how API Gateway works, right? How to deploy a new API and how do you basically make configuration changes to it and things like that. Okay, so that's quite important. Okay, so just go through this and you can just explore, the various options that are there in the API gateway, in the API, right? And there are multiple ways in which you can throttle the APIs. Okay, so that's all possible. But before that, you just have to understand, how things work at a bare minimum. And there are more advanced concepts with respect to API gateway. Okay, for now, I mean, you don't have to. Okay, one last thing that I want to show is once again, just show you the throttling settings. So if you go to the stages and if you create a specific stage and you go to the settings, here you see you have throttling. Choose the default throttling level for the methods in this stage. You can enable the throttling. You can say 10,000 requests per second is what this API can accept, and it can burst up to another 5,000. Okay, so that's what it can basically take, right? And there's something called stage variables, and you can get a deployment history here, and you can export it as a Swagger or open API, right? These are all standards basically. These are interoperable. If you have built APIs using Swagger for other applications, you can just simply bring that and import it here. Okay, so if I just click on this, yeah, so this is a complete JSON it's giving. It's a Swagger format of representing the API. And then it tells me how many calls. I mean, it's integrated with CloudWatch, correct? So if I just click on this, it will take me to CloudWatch. In CloudWatch, I can see this last. Yeah, if you see, it has increased. Count has increased here. Yeah, but if I go here also, I can see it's just went up to some 15 requests. It also tells me if I got any 4xx errors or 5xx errors, like 400, 403, or 502, bad gateway. Okay, so you don't have to worry about authorizers for now. Just do the basic stuff. I think you should be good for now, and read the documentation well. Okay, all right. So let's then open the breakout rooms, and you can just go ahead and start practicing your first API using the document that I've just given you. Okay.
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 So
So
thank you,
thank you.
Prasanna sir.
Sure. Thanks, Ravi. Over to you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to stop the recording. Uh,
Sure.
so I will. I think it will save in my laptop. So I'll just give it to you, or just let me know where I should upload. I'll upload it.
Yeah, I will let